Welcome to Microdose the Mind, where tiny doses create monumental shifts. We're your hosts, Brian Schwartz and Jeremy Wolf, and we're here to guide you through the fascinating world of microdosing, both in plant medicine and daily habits. Get ready to expand your mind and reshape your reality.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining us on this magical journey. Guys, it's Friday. I'm ready to get into this. You know, Brian and I often talk about how the medicines, the psychedelics, these things are very powerful tools, but they are just that. They are tools, and as we all know, there are no shortcuts. The real transformation comes off the heels of really, in many cases, difficult, painful, and dark work that we need to do on ourselves to ultimately get to where we want to be in life. So our guest today shares a similar mindset and a similar perspective. So we're happy to be here with Lou Dorian, and Lou founded a resource directory, a company called Psychedelist. And I'm going to let him explain what it is, but from what I understand, it's essentially a resource directory of various tools, modalities, retreats, all sorts of things that can help people along the way throughout their spiritual journey of personal growth and development. So we're happy to be sitting down with Lou today. Lou, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Glad to be here. Great to be here, Brian. Yeah, you know, the way you open there is a perfect segue to, the mindset in the beginning of when we founded Psychedelist. The word itself, the name of the company, is a play on words. Of course, we are an advertising list, a directory list, a referral list. But also, when it comes to activities and pursuits that require skill, you might use a category of names, something similar to a dentist, a physicist, a violinist. It indicates someone that has spent dedicated time and effort and determination at developing a skill set. And, we firmly believe that not only psychedelics, but especially psychedelics, but mental health, mental, emotional, spiritual health and growth require skill development. I think this, for the Western, societal world, is a new idea. I believe for a long time we've been approaching this idea of either you're mentally well or you're not, and it was just an unfortunate or fortunate turn of events for you, and so we need to medicate you or do something if it was the unfortunate side of that. And I disagree with that. I think psychedelics are amazing. They're amazing tools. I've seen just unbelievable transformations in people from, them going through transformational experiences. But I don't think that really is the meat and potatoes of this whole journey. And I've outlined what I call the 8 fundamentals of mental, emotional, and spiritual skill development and growth. And I think those are really what's fundamental in either just the mental, health journey itself, or facilitating, engaging, participating in the usage of psychedelics. So with that in mind, in June of 21, we began building the platform. And we really just wanted to create what I would call sort of a cyber city for all things supportive on that skill development journey. So you're right, we do have retreats, we've got clinics, we've got individuals, we've got people not really involved with psychedelics, but just involved in that mental, emotional, spiritual journey, integration, preparation, meditation coaching, breath coaching, sound bath healing, Reiki and energy healing, therapists of all kinds, that side of it. And then, of course, including the facilitators, the guides, the trip sitters, and even the shamans. So, it's a vast network. We're growing. We're really, as far as the global community is concerned, because we are a global website, vastly underserved. We need more people in the Midwest. We need more people really all over. We get calls all the time from people going, hey, I'm struggling with alcohol addiction. I'm struggling with PTSD. I'm struggling with depression. I found your site. Do you have anyone nearby that I can work with? And a lot of times, no. The answer is we still don't have enough folks on there. On another side of the site, we've got a learning center, we call it. It's the blog. Lots of informational materials, up-to-date news articles, research articles, all kinds of history and information around the usage of different types of entheogens. Just a vast amount of info there and more. And our providers that are listed on the site they actually are encouraged to create and provide content, both as a kind of advertising tool for them as well, because maybe they have a great piece of content, article, a video that someone sees and goes, I really love how this person approaches mental health and facilitation or guiding in psychedelic, ceremonies and treatment sessions, and I want to try that, but also just adding to the reservoir of knowledge and wisdom that's out there. So then we've also got an attorney section. We just launched that not long ago. We don't have many attorneys up there. We got like one, but it's for legal advice, obviously, for both businesses and individuals wondering about their legal status and situation with utilizing, entheogens and medicines in this way. We've got a lab testing resource section that we're building out. We just launched it. And that is because, we are also have a product. We have a product section, and the product section has a wide array of products, including, Hape or Lape, Amazonian ceremonial herb, blue lotus flower, amanita, those things. But we are also in the gray market area. I firmly disagree with the war on drugs. I think strict restriction is a recipe for disaster and really creates more harm and lack of safety versus more safety. So we believe in providing access to individuals, but in a way that's vetted. We do require samples up front from anyone who's listing some of those more psychoactive chemicals, like something like psilocybin or something like that. We are integrating with lab testing facilities to do that. So we do vetting on that side. We're in the process. In the next 2 weeks, we'll be launching our schooling, training, and accreditation resource section. We're excited about that. That's going to be a big one. And then we're going to have an events and connect section. We're embedding a Discord where people can speak in real time about maybe their experiences or engaging with certain businesses on the site, things like that. And then finally, our crowning kind of final portion of the vision is a business-to-business marketing site that's going to offer all kinds of ancillary support services to those businesses on their site. So we're talking payment processors, banking options, insurance companies, child safety packaging, brand developers, website developers. I mean, you name it, right? So that's the vision of the site, with the ethos and attitude of trying to spread the idea of, hey, you wouldn't go down to your local airstrip and just find the nearest plane and take off in that thing, and you've never taken a single day's pilot's lesson, or pilot's training course. Why would you do that with something like DMT or ayahuasca or any of it, right? Do the hard work first. Make sure you're prepared to engage in what could be a really fruitful and amazing experience, but there are some risks, so you should take it seriously. And that's, in a nutshell, what we're about.
So tons and tons to unpack there. Before I do, is anybody else hearing a little bit of an echo? I think it's coming from your end, Lou. Are you hearing that, Brian, or is that just me?
A little bit, yeah, very tiny echo.
It's manageable. I hope it doesn't affect. The listeners. I want to dig in a little bit further, Lou, and I appreciate you sharing all about the platform. I'm interested to learn about the motivation. You said you started in 2021, right around COVID or post-COVID time. For me, my spiritual journey was basically off the heels of watching Brian go through his own transformation. I kind of watched him take this into his life, and I saw a huge, huge transformation in his life, and kind of that bled over into my life, and I'm kind of slowly transitioning myself into that space. What was it for you? Go back through your personal journey. What sparked the interest for you in psychedelics and this whole space? Talk a little bit about how you came to be where you are today.
So I'm writing a novel called Lost in a Puddle.
Lost in a Puddle?
Lost in a Puddle, that's great.
Lost in the sauce.
The reason I mentioned the book effort is because the question you just asked is a loaded question. That's an enormous story. I actually began with psychedelics around the year 1995 in a very different, social environment than we are today, obviously. I began with complete lack of mentorship, no guidance. The 90s were the time of the emerging rave culture and that scene. And my first experience with this was with LSD. And actually I have the most vast reservoir experience that I have with psychedelics is actually specific mainly to LSD. I have experience with other psychedelics, including psilocybin, DMT, San Pedro cactus, peyote, mescaline, and datura. which is a rare one that people usually don't have experience with. I have actually a good amount of experience with that term, positive experience. That's another story. So I got to see both positive and negative sides of psychedelics. Actually, because of that time frame, I did see harm. I saw people have really negative outcomes from their usage with psychedelics, and then also really positive. And then I went through my father's death. My father's death was extremely jarring and painful. My father and I did not have a solid relationship. There was a lot of friction there. It was a difficult relationship. My father had a verbally and psychologically abusive nature to him. Long story there. Won't get into all those details. Kind of doing the flyover. I was actually studying to be a mathematician, and I was grew up in those years with the schooling years in San Bernardino, and I had dabbled in the substance world. You know, I sold a bit of weed, you know, was trying to fund my psychedelic journeys, go to music events, didn't have money, you know, was going to school. So, you know, when my father passed, I lost interest in what I was doing. I was actually a mathematician. I had a master's degree in math and was pursuing a PhD, and I was really doing it for him. I got into the underworld of the black market marijuana world. I was a cannabis prohibition operator, I guess you could say, distributor, a transporter, a producer at a pretty large scale, honestly. I mean, I wasn't the biggest, but I was moving some large amounts of marijuana in the 7 figures range. And so I went to prison, actually, went to jail a couple of times. I was in a hostage situation, was killed more than once. And this period of my life I was lost, to be honest with you. I was kind of pursuing the fast money. My dad had died. I had gone through a terrible experience with Western psychiatric medicine, almost ended in my suicide, actually. And it really was thanks to breath work that I survived that. And I met a Qigong practitioner at the time, but I hadn't really delved into the real deep spiritual side. It was weird when this is what's so strange about my story. I started with psychedelics because my parents were sort of these intellectual atheists, I would call them, and life felt empty and devoid. And then there was violence in San Bernardino, it was gangs, it was all kinds of stuff. And so like I was drawn to try and find purpose. Then my father dies. I kind of get into this money rat race thing, pursuing women and money in the fast life, lost any real spiritual goals during that time period. And then in 2008, I met someone and I fell deeply in love with her. And then we traveled the world together for about 6 years. And then in 2014, she died tragically. And so that moment, there's about a 12-year period where, like, I'm not comparing myself at all, but in some ways, it kind of reminds me of the story of Siddhartha. If you know the story of Siddhartha, where he's the Buddha and he's down praying on and meditating on the river Ganges when he's young, but then he meets a woman and he gets engaged with like royalty and women and lifestyle, and then he finds himself to be very unhappy. And then later in life, he goes back to the river Ganges and he starts meditating again. He finds himself. You know, in a way, my story feels a little like that. In that, once my girlfriend passed, like I had some very, very hard questions. My father's death was difficult, but my girlfriend's death was more painful than anything I've ever been through. It was physically painful. That grief was unreal. And so I began to get back involved with psychedelics. I'm a surfer, so I was in the ocean a lot. And the ocean became my church. And then I began to find my way back to my spiritual place and back to facilitating for others, actually, with psychedelics. And it was, you know, it's kind of a long journey. Like I said, this is a quick flyover. But, you know, that was how it happened. It actually, people started organically. It was really strange how it happened. As I started to go through my transformation, people started coming to me for, you know, mental health advice. I'm in the San Diego area, in Carlsbad, actually, so there's a lot of veterans. So I started having veterans come to me with PTSD. And I discovered some really interesting stuff. I found that the veterans with PTSD, the PTSD never started at war. It always starts before the war. PTSD then is triggered by the warfare and the violence and the things that they see. And so they come back, you know, with the actual PTSD fully formed. But it's really interesting what I discovered. So that was kind of the journey. And then, so at that time period, you know, I was engaging with my own spiritual practice. And then I was getting back, you know, deeper back with the breath work, surfing, praying, doing the work, and then facilitating for others. And then I woke up in 2021, you know, it was around April or so, and I started having this idea. I was like, man, we gotta make this available to other people. We gotta start talking about skill development, doing the daily work, and then offering access to folks. And so in June of 21, we actually metaphorically broke ground and started building the site.
Yeah, there's a distinction I want to make that you brought up, and I think we all share that. It's going back to when we were young. We also experimented with all these things, but at the time we did it to get high. We did it for the experience. It was a thrill. Now we do these things, and it's around deep intention, and it's around becoming better people. And so I think there's a big misconception people have that aren't familiar with psychedelics in general, is that when you approach this with intent, it's a totally different ballgame. Right, Brian?
Absolutely. Totally different ballgame. And yeah, Louis, thank you so much for sharing your story. I had goosebumps the whole time because it's baffling to me that, we're all on this journey together. And like, I don't know how old you are. I'll be 45 this year. Jeremy's 45. So we grew up in the 90s as well, experimenting with LSD in 95. I think 95, 96 was the year we started.
Yep.
And the common theme here for you and me, for example, I'm a surfer. The ocean's my church. Yeah. Your father experience mirrors my father's experience. And I think one thing we all have in common is pain. And pain is the price, discomfort is the price for freedom, but the pain is the catalyst for growth and for change. And I think a common theme is we've had enough pain. And for me, I'll speak for myself, it was when I truly humbled myself and asked for divine help, and really, really stepped into this place of, I don't know what I'm doing, right? I'm not happy with my life, and then we turn to these sacred medicines, and I love the term entheogen, right? Because it's almost like, the people I talk to and myself, I lost myself along the way, the world told me to be something I wasn't. I lost my own spark inside. And I love entheogen because entheogen means, right, the God within, right? Finding the God within. And it's beautiful to meet someone as yourself who's clearly is lit up with this. They found a passion, you're helping others, and as you know, in this world, the integration piece and the resource piece is the most important thing. When Jeremy and I started in 2020 or 19, there was nothing out there. The resource was me and experimentation, and really reaching out to people and finding out, who knows what they're doing, and I think the safe can be very safe, right? It can be a very safe space when led by the right people. I think in the hands of the wrong people, it can be a very dangerous space, and I don't know if you saw, but the U.S. Embassy issued a warning to all travelers from Peru 2 days ago. And they said, do not drink ayahuasca in combo, And my first thought is, this is bullshit, There is nothing wrong with ayahuasca in combo. But further researching and talking to my brothers and sisters, it's the wild, wild west down there, And it's important for people like yourself to have these resources available. So anyone interested in pursuing psychedelics or even any of the integration pieces, have a safe place, to look for things and ask questions. So kudos and thank you very much for being here on the show today.
Thank you. And we're right now, we haven't reached a sustainable revenue level, and our staffing is too light to really approach the vetting process. The issues you brought up in Peru are very serious. They're all over though. They're right here in the US, they're in Costa Rica, they're in Jamaica, they're all over the place. I just met with a woman recently who left the retreat in Costa Rica. I'm not going to say the name of the retreat right now. We're still assessing how we're going to address some of this stuff. But her main reason for leaving was that she had worked with them for 3 years, facilitated, been there for many ceremonies, and she just felt like they were placing profitability above the well-being of the participants. And once she started to feel like that, she felt like, it's time to leave. And that's what we're working within that space of how to vet all this, how to differentiate, how to look at the situation of like, hey, it's not an easy problem to solve. We understand maybe you're hosting 100 people at a retreat, but maybe that's too many. You don't have the resources to manage that. You need to be honest about that and transparent about what the situation is. And so, there's so much work to be done. And on the product side is actually a little easier because it's simple lab testing and things like that. You're either getting an authentic product or you're not. One of the problems, unfortunately, is the labeling aspect. This goes into I was at a trade show called Remind just recently in December around BizCon in Vegas. And at Remind, we had attorney panels and a lot of stuff going on. And a man named Reggie, I forget his organization, he's out of Oakland. And he's a lab testing guy and producing products and isolating psilocybin, things like this. And he kind of had the mindset I have. If you're out there in the product space and you're providing psilocybin chocolates or gummies or something like this, and you're afraid to put on your label what you're actually selling, I don't think you belong in space. I'll be honest with you. I went to jail. I went to prison. I've been there. I understand the fear, I understand the situation. But you know what? If you're entering that product space, you are entering the war on drugs. You are an enemy combatant. Be prepared for those consequences. So don't take on that job. Do something else. And that way don't endanger people's health by, vague labeling and things like that. I don't know if you guys are aware of the diamond shrooms debacle that happened in Utah, the Utah company, stuff like that. We just so want to avoid that. That not only is that so sad and harmful for the people that are harmed by it, but it harms the entire movement and jeopardizes the legalization efforts that we're, trying to achieve now. So yeah, that's kind of the messaging I have there too, but absolutely,
Speaking of war on drugs, I want to dig into this because I think it's interesting now with the new administration. You have somebody like Trump who is wildly outspoken about drugs, specifically fentanyl and like actual killers, which I think is important to address. But then you have somebody like RFK, Robert Kennedy Jr., coming into the administration talking about things like ayahuasca and opening us up. So I do see a big shift coming in the future over the next several years as these topics come to light. RFK talking about nutrition, making America healthy again, I think is really going to open up a lot of people to offer more of these services without fear of consequences.
Yeah,
so And I'm happy to see a resource directory like this. I've not seen anything quite like what you're doing, and I think it's so powerful to have that available for people. Because going back to what we were talking about in Peru and traveling the world, anytime there's money to be made, there's going to be bad actors and people are going to get taken advantage of, and it's going to give the industry as a whole a bad rap. So it's so important for us to raise awareness and bring credible people to the table to offer these things to people in safe environments. Right.
One of the things that's funny, you mentioned fentanyl. I'm a very outspoken in opposition to the war on drugs, actually, in general, even when it comes to fentanyl. My girlfriend died from an opioid overdose. I am not, but I'm not out there leading the campaign to arrest all the drug dealers. That was not the problem. It's not the opioid that killed her. It was the untreated trauma. It was the restriction and regulation that led to black market opioid trades. We wouldn't even have fentanyl as a problem if we hadn't interdicted into the drug trades the way we have. We wouldn't have the problems we have. The cartels wouldn't be sophisticated to the level they are if we hadn't started way back when with Pablo Escobar and crushing cocaine. Cocaine's not even that dangerous of a drug. That's what's so absurd, just absurd about that. And the thing really comes down to that, again, skill development. When you look at someone like Bruce K. Alexander and his rat park studies, and you look at what's really fueling addiction, you find out, we live in a toxic society with a lot of misery. People are going to want to numb their pain unless they're asking them to heal, find community, find support, find a way to process trauma, right? And that's what we're trying to do here. Once we start to heal, the mental health crisis that we have, we're going to see a lot less addiction, and we don't need to go after drug dealers and put everyone in jail and do that kind of stuff that really actually creates more problems than good. You look at the history of drugs, and you look at certain drugs and the interdiction efforts that went into them, it's insane. You'll see a direct correlation to further harm caused by the war on drugs instead of actual, helping people and protecting lives.
It goes back to what I said at the opening, that all these medicines, all these drugs, if you want to call it that, they are just tools. And unfortunately, we live in an instant gratification, quick fix society where people are looking to solve their problems by taking more of these tools. And it doesn't work like that. If you take too much of anything, it's not good. And that's why it's so important to have the integration. So fentanyl in isolation by itself is not an evil thing. It's bad, though, when it's being imported in by and mixed in with other drugs and people are dying from it. But it goes back to people not treating the underlying problems with themselves and just treating the symptoms with Band-Aids instead of actually fixing themselves inside. Yeah.
Yep. 100%. 100%. Exactly.
I'm curious, Lou, what have you since 2020, since 21, you started this business, you're getting some steam going. What are some of the challenges that you have faced so far in the last several years building and growing Psychedelist, and how have you kind of overcome them?
Well, there's a couple components there. I would say there's been three main challenges, one of which we're beginning to overcome now pretty definitively. But obviously, money's an issue. So the site, just so you understand from the tech kind of side of things, is actually a complete custom build from the ground up Next.js language built site. So that means that it's not a template site. It has this enormous capability. Listeners on our site have complete autonomous control of the content, the ability to edit and add, content and articles and things like that you wouldn't have with a template site. And so the build right now is up to about $1 million to build that. So that was difficult. I am the sole investor. So the challenge has been enormous. I had a rental company, Airbnb company, and things like that, but I also ended up in a lawsuit with the local municipal government here, constitutional rights, civil lawsuit that we're dealing with now. It's been a pretty rough situation. So that's been quite challenging, but you just it's been about faith for me and just knowing that, the bills are going to get paid. I'm going to keep doing my best. And if the spirit and the universe wants me to accomplish this, it's going to happen. And so far, every time the bills got to get paid, something happens, something works out. I can't explain it, but
the universe shall provide.
Yeah. And so that's been one of the major challenges. It still is. We've got, we're at the final stages of the actual full vision. And so that's going to be about 3 months out. That's going to be some money. The next kind of challenge we really faced was, the trust of the community. When we first launched the site, we actually went live. It took us 2 years to go live. That's how much build is in that. We've got 3,300 published web pages. That's all front end. And then there's the back end, which is huge as well. So this is a massive, massive platform. Basically, when we got, this thing up and running and we launched, I think in May of 23, people are like, who are you guys? You guys are the feds trying to get a surveillance list together.
You narc, Lou. What's wrong with you, man?
Yeah. I got it all the time. And it was like every day we were getting accused of that because we were reaching out to people. Hey, this is who we are. We want to build this thing. How do you feel about joining? And, there was a lot of resistance. People were very worried that we were actually the federal government. So that was a challenge. It took just hard work, and I had a couple of marketers and guys with me, and we're just reaching out to people one-on-one. I still do that to this day. I reach out to people one-on-one and have meetings face-to-face with facilitators, guides, trip sitters, product providers, you name it. I talk to them, and I'm just like, hey, this is who I am. Just so you get a face and you hear what I talk about, and then go into the trade shows. We're going to Psychedelic Science, the MAPS conference, stuff like that has helped a lot. And that was a big hurdle. And then we've got the censorship and policy restriction side of things, which is also very difficult. Having Meta business pages just taken down without notice, posts that are a year old getting flagged all of a sudden, and then no opportunity to, adjust or, edit or do something. No, just kicked off, censored. We've been through that. Same thing on YouTube. Had a year's worth of content on YouTube. Placed one ad for Psychedelics. Lost the entire year's worth of content. We had our own. I had a podcast. I have a podcast called the PEM Pod. It stands for Pragmatic Ego Management or Pragmatic Ego Mitigation. We did a lot of reaction videos.
I love that.
Yeah. So, but it's been hard, because that's why I'm here with you guys and just kind of reaching out more is we got to do it kind of grassroots really and work within the networks that are out there and building our own network and stuff like that. So, censorship really gets in the way.
I want to get your perspective on this, Brian, because I think this is interesting. You mentioned grassroots and what you're doing with this whole kind of like global wide resource directory. Brian is now doing this. This is his life's work on more of a local level. He's in Orlando, and it's boots on the ground, grassroots, and he's really grown his tribe over there. And I'm interested, Brian, can you share with our listeners a little bit about some of the challenges that you've faced in your journey in trying to spread this? Because I think if we do more of this, right? We combine more of our efforts, find more people that are doing what you're doing, Brian, in different areas of the country, different areas of the world, and bring them into the fold. We could really grow this message. But obviously each platform, each medium presents different challenges. So what are some of the things that you've dealt with over the last 4 or 5 years in your journey in trying to spread the message in Florida?
Sure, Jeremy. No, I've, like Lou touched on, we meet with the opposition. We are servants of God. We are servants of the light. So when we serve the light, guess what? We have the darkness, we have the challenges, we have the people that don't want to see us heal, right? So I think one of my biggest challenges is overcoming the legality of things, right? So, what we do is in the gray area. Fortunately, we are members of a Native American church, and we've managed to navigate that space a little bit. But talking to someone who's brought up, with a strict Western mindset, with the strict Western medical mindset, it's very hard to get them to come over to this side of the street because we've been programmed for so many years about how bad and how dangerous these substances are for us. When this is not a war on drugs, right? This is a war on consciousness, and I think, so yes, one of my biggest challenges to begin with is how open am I going to be about what I'm doing with other people, right? Do I want to let people know everything about me? And I sat with that for a minute, and you know what? The answer was as open as I can possibly be. I have nothing to hide. And in fact, keeping quiet was keeping me sick, and the more that I shared myself and my story and was authentic about what I was doing, the more I was able to actually heal myself, step further into my power, and attract people to my life that needed the healing. I think another big challenge for me is, to begin with at least, is what's a safe space to sit in, right? We see all these ceremonies, advertised on social media, right? We all have friends that know shamans that want to be shamans, that serve medicine. And, I had to ask myself, like, am I comfortable in these spaces with these people? So for me, another challenge was research. There weren't much resources available. I was really trusting on my intuition and on the people in my life that love me to guide me in the right direction, which is why I love so much, Lou, what you're doing, because that eliminates a lot of the legwork, and it really puts people in a safe space to work on themselves.
Well, Brian, we need people like you, though, doing your work to help us establish the mapping of who's who out here. So we need what you're doing in order to do what we're doing. It's so important that's why I love having these face-to-face conversations and getting to know people like you, Brian, because I got to know, that it's people like you and the woman that I mentioned earlier, Satya was telling me about the issues down in Costa Rica and things like that. Those are pieces of information. These are like correspondence, people reporting important information, intel about the environment out there. And we need what you're doing so that we can do that, so that we can then provide the larger scale of like, hey, this is what we know and this is who we're allowing on and this is what we're endorsing, and we're in the beginning stages. Got a long ways to go.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yes, we're definitely excited to connect with you after we hang up with this podcast and really talk deeper about how we can support each other for sure.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I'm thinking about my last challenge. There's a couple of them, like for instance, I'm a father. I have a daughter who's 14 years old. She's in her teenage years. Her mother is very much into Western medicine. Some of the things we do is unconventional and it looks funny. And it's very challenging to be open with my daughter about what I'm doing, right? For a number of reasons. We talked about, it's unconventional. Some things are in the gray area. I know she's getting, kickback from everyone else in her life about, what's healthy, and for me, I've learned through my own pain and mistakes on how to create health and wellness, and to watch my daughter go down the same path I went down, right? Eating sugary foods, piling the phone to her face, getting the quick dopamine fixes. That's been a very challenge for me in terms of staying in my truth and my light, being compassionate and gentle, understanding with my daughter, and gently kind of like pushing her in the right direction. So I try and form a container around being a father, right? Just like we do a container in a ceremony space. And if she starts to drift outside the container, you got to kind of direct her back in.
Just slight nudging, right? You can't tell them, right? You have to guide them. You have to show them through your actions. Very, very, very challenging. I got my own issues with my daughter who's 12. But yeah, that's what you got to do. I like that.
Hey, Lou, I have a question for you. This does not get off my mind. This is off topic.
Yeah, sure. No worries. What?
Are you related to Shane?
No.
Okay.
No,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You look kind of like him too.
Yeah, no, not really.
Who are we talking about?
Shane Dorian was one of my favorite surfers growing up.
Yeah, okay. Big time surfer. Shane's no joke. Yeah, no. I surf. I have last name Dorian, but no relation whatsoever. I wish I was one fraction of good as.
I had to ask. Yeah. I was getting like goosebumps. I was like, oh, yeah. my inner child got excited.
Speaking of challenges, I'm going to share my perspective because I'm in a little bit of we all bring something different to the table here. The biggest challenge for me as I kind of immerse myself in this space more and more, it's skirting the line between Western culture and Western society and everything we're accustomed to and this whole spiritual space. And it's very, very difficult. I'll go on retreat, have an unbelievably transformational experience, and then I come back and then I start feeling the tug of society, of the rat race, of the grind, of doing all these things. And there's a balance there. And I'm trying to navigate that as I go along. And that's just something that's been very, very challenging for me. But I've come such a long way. And I've come to learn that that struggle and that challenge and the pull, the give and take, it's all part of the process. Like that is the journey, right? And I'm learning something at every turn along the way. And I'm becoming more and more grateful for that struggle. And it's kind of making me I'm becoming into who I'm supposed to be through this whole process. So it's all part of the process. That's good stuff.
Absolutely.
Jeremy, to piggyback on what you said, you're doing incredible, and what we're doing, right? We're in the age of Aquarius now. We're in the age of doing things that no one's ever done before, right? We are doing things that no one's ever done before, and it can be challenging and difficult. It can be fun and exciting, but man, the blessings, the blessings that are coming to us are just incredible, so I'm proud of you, brother. I'm proud of you. Lou, I'm proud of you too. I know this journey. This is a difficult, challenging journey, but man, the benefits are just priceless.
It's been the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yep. Hands down.
And that's in the context of the global experience, right? It's everyone's life is all of the components of your life, the children, the family, the legal scenarios, the money, the pushes and pulls in all the different directions. All that stuff is part of the big challenge of pushing towards the vision. And then, being able to listen to the spirit and knowing when it's time to rest, knowing when it's time to not chase and push, that can be the hardest because the spirit, it whispers, it never yells. It does yell, actually. You don't want it to yell. When it yells, right? But for the most part, when you're given the opportunity to act, the whisper is very subtle, and you have to listen. You have to be very in tune with yourself and that conduit of yourself with the universe at large, the Great Spirit. I think that is the journey, is aligning further and further with that, right? As a species, I think that's what the problem with us is. We're so out of alignment with the Great Spirit, with our mother, this planet, with our fellow creatures. That is the big thing we need to overcome if we're going to sustain on this planet and become the true stewards of our world, or if we're going to perish and there's going to be another evolutionary cycle, right? We need to overcome where we're at, and I think that's what we're all trying to achieve on some level is changing the minds of our species to something that is more harmonious than what it is.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it really set in, Brian, after our last retreat. And we talked to all the participants, and it really solidified the fact that this is the right path that we're on. When you hear grown men talk about how these experiences are some of the most powerful, transformative experiences, if not the most powerful experience they've ever had in their life, and just hearing that passion from it, it just, again, it makes me know that I'm on the right path with what we're doing here, and I'm so grateful to be on this journey and be able to do this work and spread this message to more people. It's really, 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 truly blessed, and it's fantastic. Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah. So, I don't know how much time you guys have. There's all kinds of stuff I could talk about. I've developed 8 root fundamentals of mental, emotional, spiritual, healing and growth. Those are lifelong skills. Each one of them is a big reservoir of understanding. I've got 3 root fundamentals of love. You guys were talking about children. It's really interesting when it comes to children and guidance of all kinds, dealing with people. Like you're saying, it's just very rarely the case where it's appropriate to shove someone's face into something. It doesn't work. It creates resentment. That you get a Newtonian opposing force. In a way, that's one of my problems with war on drugs in itself. Like, oh no, you can't ever do this substance, it's bad. That's what's going to happen. That's what I want to do now. You know what I mean? Like, it's like because you made it such a forceful, hard line in the sand, then you get this reaction to it. And so, yeah, love is an interesting topic. Actually, I learned a lot about love through the experience I went with my girlfriend dying. That actually taught me this enormous lessons about it. And so, like I said, I don't know how much time you have because I can go on and on about all this stuff. It's amazing what I've learned through this process.
Yeah, we're probably going to need to wrap up. I gotta run off to the rat race when we're done. I
wanted to be sensitive to that. That's why I didn't just want to launch into that.
I appreciate it.
So many things we could talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we'll have to do it again sometime. And as we continue to bring people on the show, we plan on having shamans on the show, various people offering these modalities. We're going to bring them into the fold, and we're going to share what you're doing and try to link up. And certainly we're going to want to get linked up with you and be on the directory with Casa de Medicina, Brian, and the retreat center we're planning on building in the future. A lot of good stuff going on, and we're really excited for what's on the horizon.
Definitely make sure you stay in touch, because I'll have promo codes and things for you guys to have discounts for lengthy periods of time. I want to make sure that you guys are, on the site and given every opportunity to reduce your costs and things like that. We do have to make money, as I'm sure you're aware, but I will make it very reasonable for you.
Perfect.
Sounds great.
Good.
Do it.
All right, boys, we'll leave it at that. It's a pleasure. Everyone have a great day. It's Friday. Have a great weekend. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate everyone. Much love. Aho. Everybody stay blessed out there. Coach. All right, everywhere. Take care. Catch you later. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Microdose the Mind. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend and help us spread the word about the magic of microdosing. Be sure to follow us on social media for all the latest updates and insights. And remember, while we love our tiny doses, sometimes you just need to go big. Just make sure you're in the right set and setting. Until next time, keep your mind open and ready for growth.